The grand hall was silent except for the soft click of chess pieces on marble. Princess Kate sat across from Queen Camilla, her hands steady, her eyes focused on the board. This wasn't just a game. Everyone in the palace knew that. It was a test. Camilla had suggested the match 3 days earlier during a family dinner. Her tone had been casual, almost friendly, but Kate had seen the challenge in her eyes. The unspoken message was clear: prove yourself. Show that you belong here. Kate had agreed immediately. She had no choice. Declining would have looked weak, afraid, and in this world, weakness was unforgivable. Now, sitting in the ornate drawing room with its towering windows and ancient tapestries, Kate felt the weight of every eye in the palace. Staff members found reasons to pass by the doorway. Senior advisors pretended to review documents in the adjacent room. Even the guards stood straighter than usual, sensing the importance of what was happening. This wasn't about chess. It was about power, about hierarchy, about reminding Kate exactly where she stood in the royal order. Camilla moved her knight with practiced confidence. She'd been playing chess since childhood, taught by diplomats and strategists. She played the way she lived, calculated, patient, always 3 moves ahead. Kate studied the board, her heart beating faster than she wanted to admit. She was good at chess. William had taught her years ago, but Camilla was better. Everyone knew it. The first 10 moves went exactly as expected. Camilla controlled the center of the board. Her pieces moved in perfect formation, like soldiers following orders. Kate played defensively, trying not to lose ground too quickly. If you're captivated by this story, make sure to subscribe so you never miss another powerful true tale like this one. But by move 15, Kate was losing badly. Her queen was trapped. Her king was exposed. Camilla's face showed nothing, but her eyes held something that looked almost like satisfaction. Kate felt heat rise in her cheeks. She'd known this might happen. But knowing and experiencing were different things. Losing in front of the entire palace staff felt like more than defeat. It felt like confirmation of what some people already believed, that she didn't belong here, that she wasn't royal enough, that Camilla would always be above her. Kate's hand hovered over her bishop, then pulled back. Nothing seemed right. Every move led to disaster. She could feel Camilla waiting, patient as stone. Then something unexpected happened. Lieutenant James Hartley, standing guard by the far wall, coughed softly. It was barely audible. Just a tiny sound that could have been nothing. But when Kate glanced up instinctively, she saw something in his eyes. Not disrespect, not interference, just the briefest flicker of focus toward the board, specifically toward her rook. Kate looked back at the board, her mind racing. Her rook sat in the corner, seemingly useless. She'd almost forgotten about it. But now, following the direction of James's barely perceptible glance, she saw something. A pattern. A possibility. A move so unexpected that even Camilla might not see it coming. Kate's fingers closed around the rook. Kate moved the rook diagonally across the board, sliding it into a position that seemed random. Almost careless. Camilla's eyebrow raised slightly. It was the first crack in her perfect composure. The queen studied the board more carefully now. The casual confidence flickered. She reached for her knight, then hesitated. Her fingers drummed once against the table's edge. Kate kept her face neutral, but inside, her pulse raced. The move James had subtly indicated had opened something. A tiny gap in Camilla's perfect defense. Not enough to win, not yet. But enough to breathe. Camilla made her move. Aggressive. Meant to punish Kate's apparent mistake. But when Kate responded by moving her forgotten bishop into play, something shifted in the room's atmosphere. The staff members, lingering nearby, stopped pretending to work. They watched openly now. Even Commander Walsh, head of palace security, had appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, face unreadable. 3 moves later, Kate's pieces formed a pattern that made Camilla pause longer than before. The queen's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She was being challenged, genuinely challenged, and she didn't like it. James remained perfectly still at his post. But Kate could feel his presence like a warm current in a cold room. He wasn't interfering, wasn't helping directly, but somehow his energy steadied her, reminded her she wasn't alone in this ritual humiliation, disguised as a friendly game. Camilla captured Kate's knight with decisive force, placing the piece beside the board with more emphasis than necessary. "You're improving," she said. Her tone was pleasant, but the words felt like criticism wrapped in politeness. "Thank you," Kate replied simply. She moved her queen into a position that threatened Camilla's bishop. For the first time, Camilla took more than 30 seconds to respond. Her eyes scanned the board with intense focus. The casual superiority had vanished, replaced by genuine concentration. The room grew quieter. More people had gathered now. Lady Sarah, one of the senior ladies in waiting, watched from the settee with barely concealed interest. 2 household staff members stood frozen in the hallway, tea service forgotten. Everyone sensed what was happening. This wasn't going according to script. Kate was supposed to lose gracefully, accept her place, acknowledge Camilla's superiority in yet another arena. That was how these things worked. How power was maintained, but the game had become something else. Something unpredictable. James coughed again, softer this time. So quiet that Kate almost didn't hear it, but she did. And again, her eyes flicked up to meet his for just a fraction of a second. His gaze moved, barely, just the slightest shift toward the left side of the board, toward her remaining rook that Camilla had dismissed as irrelevant. Kate saw it then. The full strategy. Not just one move, but a sequence. A series of sacrifices that would lead to something Camilla wouldn't see coming until too late. It was risky. If it failed, Kate would lose spectacularly. The humiliation would be complete. But if it worked, ... Kate moved her pawn forward. A seemingly insignificant advance. Camilla glanced at it with dismissal and quickly captured it with her knight. Exactly as Kate had hoped. The trap was set. Now came the dangerous part. Kate's next 3 moves looked desperate. She sacrificed her bishop, lost her remaining knight. Camilla's pieces dominated the board now, closing in on Kate's king like wolves circling wounded prey. Lady Sarah whispered something to another woman. They both shook their heads with what looked like pity. Even some of the staff members who'd been rooting quietly for Kate began to turn away, unable to watch the inevitable conclusion. But James hadn't moved. His eyes remained fixed on a point in the middle distance, his military training keeping his face perfectly neutral. Yet something in his stillness radiated certainty. Confidence. Kate felt it and drew strength from it. Camilla moved her queen forward with triumph barely concealed. "Check," she announced. The word hung in the air like a bell toll. Kate's king had only 2 possible moves. Both looked equally disastrous. The gathered audience shifted uncomfortably. This was becoming painful to watch. Kate moved her king to the left square, the apparently worse option. Gasps rippled through the room. Even Camilla looked momentarily confused by the choice. "Interesting," Camilla said slowly. She studied the board with narrowed eyes, searching for the trap she suddenly sensed but couldn't identify. Kate remained silent, her hands folded in her lap. She looked calm, but beneath the table. Her fingers were laced together so tightly, her knuckles had turned white. Camilla finally moved her queen again, positioning it for what should have been checkmate in 2 moves. But as soon as her hand left the piece, Kate saw recognition flash across the queen's face. She'd seen it. Too late, but she'd seen it. Kate moved her rook, the one that had been sitting ignored in the corner, the one everyone had forgotten about. It slid across the board in a straight line that suddenly revealed the pattern James had somehow perceived 15 moves. Earlier, Camilla's king was trapped, completely, perfectly there. Was no escape. The room erupted in surprised murmurs. Lady Sarah stood up from the settee, her hand over her mouth. Commander Walsh's eyes widened fractionally. Staff members crowded closer to see the board, unable to believe what they were witnessing. "Check," Kate said quietly. Camilla stared at the board. Her face had gone very still. She examined every possible move, her mind working through scenarios with decades of experience. But there was nothing. No way out. No clever counter. 3 moves later, it was over. "Checkmate," Kate said. Her voice was steady. But inside she felt like she might collapse from the tension releasing all at once. Silence filled the grand hall. Complete, shocked silence. No one seemed to know how to react. Staff members exchanged glances. Senior advisors stood frozen. This wasn't supposed to happen. This never happened. Camilla sat motionless for a long moment, staring at the board as if willing it to change. Then, slowly, deliberately, she tipped her king over in the traditional gesture of surrender. "Well played," Camilla said. Her voice was controlled, pleasant even. But her eyes had gone cold, hard. The mask of friendly competition had cracked, revealing something else beneath. "Thank you," Kate replied. "You're an excellent teacher." It was the perfect response. It's gracious, humble, politically astute. It offered Camilla a way to save face while acknowledging the victory. But everyone in the room knew the truth. They'd all witnessed it. Kate had won, fairly, completely, against an opponent who was supposed to be unbeatable. Camilla stood with practiced grace. "I should attend to some correspondence before dinner." Her tone was pleasant but dismissive. The game was over. The moment was ending. She would control the narrative from here. "Course," Kate replied, standing as well. Camilla swept from the room, her ladies-in-waiting following like a dark tide. The staff members scattered quickly, suddenly remembering forgotten duties. Within minutes, Grand Hall had emptied except for Kate and the 2 guards on duty, James and his fellow guard. Marcus remained at attention by their respective posts. Their faces showed nothing. Perfect military discipline. But when Kate glanced toward James, she saw the smallest change in his eyes. Pride, satisfaction, respect. Kate felt tears threaten and blinked them back quickly. Not here. Not where anyone might see. She walked toward the doorway with measured steps, her composure intact. As she passed James, she paused for just a moment. "Thank you," she whispered, so quietly that only he could hear. James's eyes met hers briefly. He gave the smallest nod, acknowledgement, understanding. Then Kate was gone, moving through the corridors toward her private chambers. Only when she was alone behind closed doors did she allow herself to sit down heavily on the edge of her bed. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, from released adrenaline, from the weight of what had just happened. She'd won. Against Camilla, in front of witnesses, in a game that had been designed to remind her of her place, but instead of feeling triumphant, Kate felt afraid, because she understood what this meant. She'd challenged the order, disrupted the hierarchy. Won when she was supposed to lose gracefully. There would be consequences. Meanwhile, in the guards' quarters, James was being confronted by Marcus as they changed out of their ceremonial uniforms. "What the hell was that?" Marcus asked quietly, checking to make sure they were alone.
"Oh, what was what?"
James replied, his face neutral, the coughing, the glances. "You helped her. You guided her moves." Marcus's voice wasn't accusatory, just stating facts. "I coughed because my throat was dry," James said calmly. "James." Marcus stepped closer. "I saw what you did. I know chess. You saw that endgame 15 moves before it happened. You showed her the path." James met his friend's eyes directly. "I stood at my post. I maintained protocol. I did nothing wrong. That's not what I asked." James was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice low and intense. She was being humiliated, set up to fail in front of the entire palace, to be reminded that she never really belonged, that no matter what she does, she'll always be less than. "That's how it works here," Marcus said. "Not defending it, just acknowledging reality. Then maybe it shouldn't work that way," James replied. Marcus studied his friend's face. "You're going to get in trouble again, you know that, right? This is exactly the kind of thing that got you suspended before." "I know, and you did it anyway." "Yes." Marcus shook his head, but there was something like admiration in his expression. "You're either very brave or very stupid? Probably both, James admitted. That evening, Captain Reynolds summoned James to his office. Again, the familiar walk felt heavier this time. James knew what was coming. Reynolds sat behind his desk, his expression grave. On the desk lay several printed photographs. Security camera footage, showing James's position during the chess match, showing his subtle movements, the timing of his coughs. "We need to talk," Lieutenant Reynolds said quietly. James stood at attention before the desk, his eyes fixed on a point on the wall behind Reynolds. "Military discipline. Don't react. Don't explain unless asked." "Do you know why you're here?" Reynolds asked. "I can guess, sir." Reynolds gestured to the photographs. Security reviewed the footage. Multiple angles. Timestamp analysis. "They've documented 17 instances where your behavior corresponded with Princess Catherine's moves during the chess match." James said nothing. There was nothing to say. The evidence was clear. It's his interference, Lieutenant. Direct involvement in royal affairs. It's exactly the kind of behavior we discussed after your previous incident. "I stood at my post, sir. I coughed a few times because the room was warm. If Princess Catherine happened to look in my direction, that's not something I controlled." Reynolds leaned back in his chair. "James, don't insult either of our intelligence. We both know what you did." "Sir, You helped her win," Reynolds interrupted. "Against Queen Camilla?" "In a very public display. And now there are people in this palace who are extremely unhappy about it." James felt his jaw tighten. Is winning against the Queen a crime now? "It is when a guard orchestrates it," Reynolds replied sharply. Then he softened slightly. "Listen to me. I know you have good intentions. I know you see Princess Catherine as someone who deserves support. But you can't keep doing this. You can't keep putting yourself between her and the system." "And why not?" The words came out before James could stop them. Reynolds stared at him. "Because the system is bigger than both of you, and it will crush you if you keep challenging it." "Maybe some systems deserve to be challenged," James said quietly. The room fell silent. The words hung between them like a sword suspended by a thread. Finally, Reynolds spoke. "I'm going to be straight with you. Commander Walsh wants you dismissed completely, not suspended. Removed from service permanently." James felt his stomach drop. "Sir, however," Reynolds continued, "I've argued for an alternative. A transfer. Away from the main palace, away from any contact with the royal family. A position where you can serve out your contract without causing any more disruptions." "A exile disguised as a transfer," James said. "A chance to keep your career," Reynolds corrected. "Which is more than you deserve after interfering twice now." James thought about it. A transfer would mean leaving the palace. No more glimpsing Kate in the corridors. No more being part of the world he'd dedicated 8 years to. But it also meant keeping his career, his pension, his future. The safe choice was obvious. "What if I refuse the transfer?" James asked. Reynolds' expression darkened. "Then you'll be dismissed, with a mark on your record that will make finding any security work extremely difficult." "I understand, sir. Do you?" Reynolds leaned forward. "Because I don't think you do. You're throwing away everything for someone who can't even publicly acknowledge your existence. Someone who will move on with her life while yours falls apart." "That's not why I did it," James said. "Then why?" James met his captain's eyes directly. "Because she deserved to win. Because she's worked harder than anyone in this palace. Because she faces constant judgment and criticism and still shows up every day with grace and kindness. Because someone needed to be on her side." Reynolds was quiet for a long moment. "That's a very noble reason to destroy your career," James agreed. "But it's my career to destroy." Reynolds picked up a file from his desk. "You have 24 hours to decide. Take the transfer or face dismissal. Those are your only options." James saluted. "Yes, sir." He left the office and walked through the palace corridors one more time, his mind churning. The paintings on the walls seemed to watch him with judgment. The marble floors echoed his footsteps like a countdown. 20-4 hours to choose. Between survival and principle, James already knew what he would choose. He'd known from the moment he helped Kate win. The next morning, James stood outside Commander Walsh's office with his decision. He'd barely slept. Spent the night walking through London's streets, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The memorial service bow, the suspension, the interview, meeting Kate privately. And now, the chess match, every choice had pushed him further from safety and closer to something else. Something that looked like failure from the outside, but felt like integrity from within. James knocked on the door. "Enter," Walsh's voice called. James walked in and stood at attention. Walsh sat behind her desk, Captain Reynolds standing beside her. Both watched him with expressions that revealed nothing. "Lieutenant Hartley," Walsh said. "Have you made your decision regarding the transfer?" "Yes, ma'am. And I decline the transfer, ma'am." Reynolds' face fell. Walsh's expression didn't change at all. She'd expected this. "You understand this means immediate dismissal?" Walsh asked. "I do, ma'am." "Are you willing to accept that consequence?" "Yes, ma'am." Walsh studied him for a long moment. "Why?" "Help me understand why you would throw away 8 years of honorable service for this." James took a breath. He'd practiced this answer all night, but now the rehearsed words felt wrong. Instead, he spoke from instinct. "Because someone has to stand for something, ma'am? This institution demands perfect loyalty, perfect neutrality, perfect sacrifice. But it doesn't demand the same thing from everyone equally. Some people are protected. Some are held to impossible standards. And when someone like Princess Catherine tries to change that, tries to bring humanity into this place, she gets punished for it." "Princess Catherine won a chess game," Walsh said dryly. "Princess Catherine survived a public test designed to humiliate her," James corrected. "And yes, I helped her. Because watching good people get torn down by systems that fear change is something I can't do anymore." Walsh's jaw tightened. "That's quite a speech, Lieutenant. It's the truth, ma'am." "Your truth," Walsh said. "Not necessarily reality. And we disagree on what reality is, ma'am." Walsh stood. "Lieutenant Hartley, effective immediately, you are dismissed from royal service. You will surrender your credentials and uniform. You have 1 hour to clear your personal items." James saluted. One final time. "Yes, ma'am." He turned to leave, but Walsh spoke again. Lieutenant James paused and looked back. "For what it's worth," Walsh said quietly, "I hope you find whatever you're looking for, because you've sacrificed everything to chase it." James nodded once, then left. 30 minutes later, James walked out of the palace gates for the last time. No uniform. No credentials. Just himself and a small box of personal items. The morning sun was bright. Traffic hummed. The world outside the palace walls continued. Indifferent to his private ending, James felt lighter than he had in years. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Thank you. For everything. You showed courage when it mattered most. That will not be forgotten." C. James smiled. Kate had found a way to reach him. To let him know his sacrifice hadn't been invisible, he deleted the message immediately, protecting her from any connection that might cause problems. Then he started walking toward whatever came next behind him. In the palace, Kate stood at a window watching him go. She placed one hand against the glass, silent goodbye to a man who'd risked everything to help her win a game that was never really about chess. It was about dignity. About refusing to accept a system designed to diminish her. About finding allies in unexpected places. She'd won the chess match. But James had lost his career making it possible. Kate turned away from the window, her decision crystallizing. If people like James were willing to sacrifice for what was right, then she needed to fight harder, to change more. To make his sacrifice mean something beyond one game. She picked up her phone and called her private secretary. "I need you to set up a meeting with the charities board. And after that, schedule time with the Palace Reform Committee. We have work to do." 6 months later, James was working for a private security firm, training protection officers for humanitarian organizations. He was happy. The work was meaningful. The rules made sense. One evening, his phone buzzed with a news alert. Princess Catherine announces major palace protocol reforms. New guidelines emphasize humanity over hierarchy. James read the article. Kate had pushed through changes. Small ones, but significant. Staff would be treated with more respect. Rigid protocols would be evaluated. The human cost of tradition would be considered. It wasn't revolution, but it was progress. James smiled and set his phone down. His sacrifice had planted something, a seed that Kate was nurturing into change. He'd made the right choice, both in helping her win and in accepting the consequences. Some games matter more than the players. Some victories cost everything, but they're worth it, because courage isn't about winning without cost. It's about paying the price anyway, and knowing you'd do it again. James would. Every single time. For people like Kate who fought to make broken systems better, for the belief that kindness shouldn't be punished, for the hope that institutions could evolve, he'd bowed deeper once. Helped her win once, lost his career once, and given the chance, he'd do it all again. Because some things are worth more than safety, worth more than careers, worth more than fitting into systems that demand you surrender your humanity. Things like integrity, like standing with good people against unfair systems, like choosing right over easy. Those things couldn't be taken from him. Not by dismissal, not by consequences. They were his forever, and they'd set him free.